Hello, sports fans. This is Play It Right TV, and I'm Kinito Hansen.
And I'm Diane Castillo. Get ready to uncover the future of Philippine sports.
Well, today, as usual on Play It Right TV, we'll navigate and break down the game with a lot of insights coming from our very featured guest and also from Diane and I, whatever it is that we might be able to contribute so that we can expand and enhance your knowledge and excitement of the game.
And as we always say, we'd love to hear your insights, your feedback, your comments, your questions. So send us a message below. Today, we are super honored and excited to have with us a man who's been a good friend to us over the years, an outstanding athlete all his life, such a sportsman. He has been on top of the Alaska team for decades, one of the key reasons for the tremendous success of Alaska. Please welcome Mr. Fred Uytengsu to Play It Right TV.
Woo, woo, woo.
Hi, Fred.
Hi, Diane. Hi,
So
Kenito. Good to see you both.
nice. So
Good to
nice
see
to
you,
see
Mr.
you.
Thanks, Sue.
Good to see
We've
you.
heard the sad news 35 years of existence in the PBA. Alaska is disbanding, but we'd like to find out more from you about the reasons behind the withdrawal. But my first question to you, Mr. Uytengsu, is if you were commissioner for a day of the PBA, what would be the first thing you'll do?
I see you start with the easy questions first. And that really is a tough question. When you say if I were commissioner for a day and what would I do with the current circumstance right now? Well, I think Commissioner Marshall did what he called an emergency board meeting to discuss amongst the other board members on what they can do and should be able to do in terms of trying to keep a 12-team league. So I think they're doing the right thing. And as we speak, we are looking for interested parties that may want to assume and purchase the Alaska franchise. We have been thinking about this a long time, and we obviously wanted to keep it confidential so that the people that heard first were our players, and then right immediately after was the commissioner and the chairman of the league. And then, of course, all of our friends in media, because we have a lot of history. We have 35 years of history together.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, I don't think I would have done anything differently.
What's the
Nice.
best thing that ever happened to you and the Alaska franchise through those 35 years? The one best thing that ever happened?
I've been asked variations of that question, and it's really hard to distill one thing into 35 years. And if you insist on just one, I would say it's the relationships. More than the rings, more than the championships, more than all the accolades. It's the relationships that we have built over the years that continue today. I spoke to several players. I spoke to Joaquin Trillo, people who are not involved with the franchise anymore. And it's those relationships from 5, 10, 15 years ago that are still extremely strong and will continue to be strong for another 35 years. I hope I'm around 35 years, but
You will. Fred, we saw the press conference and your voice was cracking. It was obviously a very, very emotional moment for you. How difficult was it? And I mean, sort of 35 years is like more than a marriage already. It's like everything you've been through. How tough was it? I know you said it was a business decision and all that, but can you take us through that again? Because it's hard to imagine the PBA without Alaska.
it's very kind of you to say, Diane. But when you say it's more, it is like a marriage. My wife and I have been married 36 years, and this is something that we've gone through together. I mean, this is not just me. I mean, to be honest with you, she was and is my number one confidant. And all the big decisions that I had to make, we discussed. before we finalized everything. So for both of us, this was very personal. It was more than just a business decision. We had the team before we had our first child. If you
Oh,
look at all of the games that
wow.
we've been to over the years, this is a big part of our life. So while it was a business decision, there's a lot of emotion wrapped up into this, and I, it's just really hard, Diane. I look back at the players of the past. I look at the current crop of players. This is their livelihood. I get that. I know how important it is for them, and we desperately hope that we get a nice home for them because they deserve that. But at the end of the day, I can understand the need to refocus the efforts of the company. Um, everyone has gone through a very challenging period in the last 2 years, and so I can understand why we and maybe other teams might have a consideration for not continuing to participate in the PBA. Having said that, listen, the PBA is a phenomenal organization. We've got millions of fans, and it's important that we do the right thing to make sure that we are relevant for
Hmm.
the primary form of entertainment that the PBA is.
Yeah, I actually, you mentioned your wife. I in my mind, I distinctly remember almost all your photos watching from the sidelines is always with Carrie, always there, like super cheer. You were like, the the common photo there beside on the Alaska stands. The passion, I could see that. So you said that you talked to the players. That was the hardest thing. Um, can you share some of the have you had a lot of communication with the players, and I know that you're obviously going to take care of them. How has it been communicating with the players for their next steps?
Well, Dickey spent the time directly talking to the players, and here's the irony: when I spoke to the team, this is the first time where I have not met some of the players on our team. If you
Mm,
go back even just a couple of years ago, I knew everyone on the team. I knew their spouses or girlfriends and sometimes their children. It was they were part of the Alaska family. And so obviously when I delivered the news, it's like a bomb going off, and they were stunned. It didn't, how do you respond to something like that? And I told them, look, there was never going to be a good time to deliver that message. And I
yeah.
understand that, but we still, we have a job to do. And I know they're professional. I know that they would like to win another ring, but they also want to showcase their talents. And hopefully that secures them new contracts. Now,
Yeah.
in the interim, I got a beautiful message from Jerron Teng, and he told me
Mm,
he was really sad. And he goes, "Don't worry, boss. We're going to go out there. We're going to go out with a bang." And look what happened in our
yeah.
last game. Career high 30 points, right? Isn't that exciting?
No,
Super.
not only
It's
that, you guys were down 17 entering the fourth period
yes.
and still managed to win. That was just an amazing thing. And
Yeah,
you're in a
unbelievable.
roll. Alaska's on a roll now. But
Well,
we're talking about the current situation. Let's go back in time. You were
hmm.
24 years old, 1986, when the Alaska team was formed. What was your vision for the team? What did you think the team was going to be like, let's say 5, 10 years from then?
Kenito, when I go back that far, and I actually remember that vividly because as a young kid, having the opportunity and the privilege to start your own franchise, to go through the process, and I knew very little, to be honest with you. And I'm negotiating with Tommy Manotok, who was the
Mm,
president's son-in-law. Look, I know Tommy, but Tommy was a pretty tough guy, and he did not make it easy for this young kid to try and get a start in the PBA. Everything from we got the expansion pool, so we didn't have a strong team to start with, and then drafting, we didn't draft the way we thought we would, to picking a coach and a general manager. There was a lot of learning on my part, and I have to say, made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. Uh, then I look back at what did I really want to do. I First of all, I wanted the team to be a good representation of our company, which means that we were selling milk. We needed to be a clean and wholesome team, so
Mm.
that the fans and the mothers purchasing our milk would say, well, look, Alaska's a good team. On the cart, we want our children to be like the players on the court. And we told every player, and we still tell them, that they are ambassadors on and off the court. So I likened it as an analogy because I'd been in the States for so long. I said, we wanted to be the Dallas Cowboys of
Mm.
the PBA. And by that, I mean,
Mm.
we wanted to be a wholesome team. We wanted to be, a team that was respected, that did the right thing. And those were the virtues that I espoused to and hoped to live up to when we first started. And of course, you both know me. We wanted to win. I'm
Yeah.
competitive by nature, and I wanted to win. And it was not easy. It was not easy.
Well, talking
Well,
about not being easy, Mr. Uytengsu, in the first 3 years of the franchise, you went through five different coaches. And that must have been quite a struggle before you risked your franchise with a very inexperienced coach named Tim Cohn. What was
Hmm.
it like in the early years, starting with Tony Vasquez, who passed on, and then Cesar Hota came into the picture? You even tried out Bogs Adornado. That process of elimination must have been quite a challenge. And then, how did Tim Cohn get into the picture?
Well, don't forget, Nat Canson was in that too,
Yes,
in the
and Turo
first
Valenzuela.
five coaches, and Turo. So, I mean, we've had 10 coaches in 35 years. That's actually not a lot of coaches when you think about that, if you compare it with other franchises. But to start with, again, I will say a lot of my youth and immaturity and inexperience is to blame in the beginning,
mm.
because maybe I should have been a little bit more patient. Maybe I should have laid down my expectations more clearly so that the coaches knew what they were stepping into in the beginning. Um, and in fairness to all of the coaches that preceded Tim, I just wanted someone who wanted to win as badly as I did. That if we lost, I don't sleep at night, and I didn't want them to sleep at night either. Right?
Okay.
I mean, those are my expect. I'm not asking you
So,
to do anything differently that I wouldn't do, but because that's who I am. I said I want this to really hurt, and I hate to lose. And Tim was a friend from high school and would come to the games, and he'd comment because he played basketball, but he had no coaching experience. But he would have these ideas and comments about, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And when you're winning, it's okay. But when you're losing and you have someone in your ear mentioning all this stuff, it gets irritating. And I remember one time, and I said, if you think it's so easy, Tim, why don't you try and do it yourself? And he said, is that an offer? And I said, well, wait a minute,
really?
because I do not believe in mixing friendship and business.
Mm.
Right? It's a very tough thing. And I said the reason being is coaching is a very insecure job, and there'll probably come a day that I probably have to fire you, and that would probably jeopardize the relationship. And look, we went a long time before we won a championship with Tim, and there were times in between when we didn't do well, and there was clamor. I mean, I saw many times in the newspapers, why is Tim still coaching? Alaska's not winning anymore. Fire him, bring in some new blood, right? And I would say my experience taught me that sometimes patience is rewarded. And I
Yeah, that's
didn't have that maturity in the first several years. I had to learn it the hard way.
an incredible story,
You you
really.
know, Mr. Oyting, so your sense of excellence, um, you're raising the bar for your team. Where did that come from? We know that in 1991, you represented the Philippines in swimming in the Southeast Asian Games. Did this come from your parents, your sense of hard work, your sense of honesty and integrity? Where did this all come from?
Well, I think the honesty, integrity came from my parents for sure. I mean, we were raised to do the right thing, to say the right thing, and to walk that line. So that was, that's the only thing I really know, to be honest. The competitive side is different because neither my mother or father are athletes or competitive. My father's fiercely competitive in business, and so that much I got. But on the playing field or on the court, I got that from my swimming, and I it carried over into basketball, and it carries into anything else I do. I'm fiercely competitive in business as well. So I wanted to transcend that desire to win to the team and on the court. But as you've also heard me say, to win with integrity.
Tim,
Diane?
Fred, talking about your parents, I also have this vivid remembrance of them in the Rizal Memorial swimming pool when you were competing, because my brother and you were in the same age group. And I remember, man, when you would get off the starting blocks, they would be screaming on the side, "Go Fred, go Fred, go Fred," nonstop. So competitive, not sportsman, but definitely competitive sports people. And yeah, I just remember that so well. And having that competitive fire in you, I think ingrained since you were a child, your sports upbringing from your parents, and then being faced with, as you were saying, not winning early, and being, having so many voices said, "Oh, you need to change the coach and do this." Uh, how did you, how did you know, like in your gut, because obviously you became super successful. How did you know? What influenced your decisions as to, like, yeah, is this the time, or no, or yes, or stick with it? Should I change? What guided you?
Well, Diane, the answer is you never really know, right?
Okay, take
Yeah,
a
we
chance.
didn't. I mean, I would be lying if I said we knew if we did this, that would happen. In fact, the discussions that Carrie and I would have is like, what is wrong? We're doing all of these things and yet we're still not winning. What is the matter? And it was
Mm,
frustrating. And so whether it was just persevering, more hard work, and luck, I mean, the good fortune to pick some of the players that we had in the beginning, and the fortitude to keep plugging at it until we were successful. Um,
yeah,
but I've any decision in life, there are no guarantees. You think you're doing the right thing, you hope you're doing the right thing, and then you move forward 110%. And that's what we did. The
nice.
biggest change that we made with the team is that we decided we were going to win defensively, because you can have an off night on shooting. You're not hitting your 3 pointers.
Hmm.
Um, defense is good, but defense doesn't take a night off. If you can play defense with hustle,
Right,
I mean, you
right.
have to be smart about it, but that's hustle. Offense, how many players, including Michael Jordan, have had a bad night offensively?
Mm,
Defense is just, if you have a bad night defensively, I'm going to charge that to laziness.
yeah. Well, I guess I heard keep doing the right thing, and I learned something. Consult with your wife about making decisions. Some of the keys. I didn't know that she was. I didn't know, honestly, that you would have this much discussion about her, about your basketball team.
Well, she's my secret weapon.
Fred, let's go back to 1996. You won the
Hmm.
Grand Slam, certainly a milestone in the history of the franchise. But moving forward, 1998, you had a chance for a second Grand Slam. Then the Centennial team came along, and then there was the call from the country to represent the Philippines in the Asian Games and in basketball international competitions. You sacrificed a second Grand Slam for the sake of the country. Can you tell us, was that a hard decision, giving up some of your key players, and even your coach was coaching the Centennial team?
Well, first of all, it was not an assured Grand Slam. Let me be clear about that. I think there was a very good chance because we were playing really well. We'd won the first two conferences. And yes, we gave up Tim and JoJo and Johnny and Kenneth. And had we had all of them together, could we have won another conference and completed our second Grand Slam in 2 years? I liked our chances, but when the sense of duty calls to serve the country, there's really no discussion. And look, we were hopeful. We were hopeful of doing very well. And guess what? We won a bronze medal at the Asian Games. That
Mhm.
hadn't been done in a while. So we were pleased to have made the sacrifice and even more proud with the outcome.
I'll ask you a very sensitive question, Mr. Uytengsu, and this is about PBA officiating and
Hmm.
also the conduct of some of our coaches. I've covered a lot of Alaska games, and I've seen you express displeasure over things that were going on in the court. Um, I want to cite some illustrations of when you took out your wallet and kind of like showed it to the referee, saying, "Hey guys, you better be on your toes because what? Are you guys getting paid for doing bad calls?" What went through your
Magkano
mind?
ba?
Yes, exactly. And also, you had some verbal altercations. I remember once, at least, with Coach Yang Yao, who's a very vocal guy on the court and very vocal as well with the spectators. So, tell us about some of those experiences.
Well, listen, being fiercely competitive sometimes doesn't bring out the best in anyone, right? And I'll tell you, sometimes I've lost my cool. I mean, you've seen it there, Kenito. I want the best, and if I see a bad call, I won't hesitate to say how I feel. And there was all kinds of suggestions that referees were on the take. Were they? Weren't they? I don't know. But I mean, there was just a lot of suggestion that was going on, and I went with my heart rather than my brain at that point in time. You know, um, in terms of other coaches or whatever else, look, if I see a player hurt one of our players, I won't hesitate to say what I feel about that player. And I'll also yell down at the other end of the bench and say, "Hey, coach, this is basketball. This is not MMA." Right? Now, if the coach takes offense to that, I'm happy to have that conversation. And if he's concentrating on me in the stands having that conversation, he's not concentrating on his team.
Love it, love it. That's so
That's passion.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
love the
It is
passion.
that's
passion.
really passion for the game. It really is.
Yeah.
My next question is, before we turn you over back to Diane, is can you name your top five Alaska players all time and your top three Alaska import players of all time?
Ooh, that's tough.
Wow. Well, okay. I mean, top five. Johnny, Jojo, Kenneth, Bong, and number five. Wow, really hard, really hard. I wish I had five, six, seven, eight because I love Sonny. Sonny's been with us, for the longest time. Um, Cyrus, if talking about on the court, Bong Alvarez, Calvin. There are just so many choices for that. In terms of import, Sean is second to none. He's Mr. 100%. Um, and then, gosh, you have me stumped there. I'd have to go back with. You have to give me time to think about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were talking with Kenneth Durandez, and he mentioned Devin Davis as one of his favorites.
Well, Devin
Somebody
was
mentioned, yeah,
Devin had the dreadlocks. He had the gold teeth,
right.
and he was scary. He was scary
He was.
offensively and defensively.
He was.
Diamond Simpson. I really like Diamond Simpson too.
Mhm.
He was a class act. Um, just the way that he brought his mother out his first time, and just when I see how players treat their families, that resonates with me a lot.
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah, all the players have said that, their most memorable time, one of their most memorable times with Alaska was, of course, not just winning championships, but all the trips that included all their families and everyone was like celebrating. And almost every Alaska player has said that. And I think that was really primarily you. right? I mean
Well,
that was one of your ideas of how to treating your team like, as you said, like a family, and doing things right.
well, for us, Diane, I look at it, the players are sacrificing their time on the court at the game. Sometimes the families can't come to watch them play because
Mm,
mom has to stay home to take care of the kids, or the kids have school. And this was just our small way of thanking the family for the sacrifice that the fathers and the players were making. And guess what? They loved it. If your family is happy, you're going to be happy. And that was,
right.
to me, very important to share that philosophy with our players. And I see that now. I mean, I've talked to players sometimes 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And it's not just the trips that we took, Diane. It was also the team dinners we would have. A Christmas party. We'd have Christmas party at the house, and we'd bring
Mm-hmm.
players and spouses. So all those special times together off the court meant a lot to us.
Yeah. And now moving forward, you said a lot of companies have been talking to you about buying your franchise. How would you like it to continue or live on? And uh, yeah, how would you like to leave the Alaska team and have it uh, continue playing in the PBA?
Well, whoever we sell to, I want to make sure it's someone who I think will take care of the players, the coaching staff, the utility staff. That's the most important to me. How they run their franchise, what their values are, what their objectives are, that's up to them, because no one is going to replicate the Alaska franchise the way we did.
Yeah.
Our system is different. I don't expect them to, and nor should they, because they have to put their own imprint on the franchise.
Yeah, Tim, sorry, Fred. I know how passionate you are about your basketball, and then we saw it in triathlon. Where are you going next in terms of your sports passion? I know you joined the Masters swimming tournament in the U.S. I mean, you're just in and out the
Yeah.
sportsman.
Well, I mean, look, I spent 17 years doing Ironman and triathlon, and it was a fantastic ride. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed bringing Ironman to the Philippines. And then, my body got tired. The time commitment also got exhaustive. And most importantly, I'm getting older, right? So I decided to go back to my first sport, which was swimming. And in 2019, I went to the World Masters Championships in Korea, and we were supposed to go in 2020, or sorry, in 2020 to Japan, and that was canceled. And then it
Mm.
was postponed to next year, and it was canceled again. So I'm looking for my next opportunity to compete, but it'll be in swimming. I'm enjoying
Nice.
being back in the pool.
Yeah. Oh, Kinito, I remember interviewing Fred right after he finished the full Ironman in Hawaii, which is like, I think, the most extremely difficult things to do. I just remember all the challenge you went through, and you did it. And it just speaks volumes about the character you have, the kind of person that you have, and the kind of organization that you run. So we're super gonna miss you.
Well, I'm going to miss all of you. And look, while we're not in the PBA, I'm sure our paths will cross. I was joking with the commissioner. I said, look, when I'm back, I hope you'll give me free tickets to go watch a game. I don't know who I'm going to cheer for. It's hard to cheer for anyone but Alaska. But it's been a big part of our lives, and I know that the PBA will want to continue to be relevant to the millions of fans that it's had and will continue to have.
Fred, just going back to the decision of withdrawing from the PBA, back in 2012, when the Dutch company bought Alaska, it appeared to a lot that Alaska's days in the PBA would be numbered because of the change of corporate direction. But it still took about 9 or 10 years before the decision finally came. Um, the fact that Alaska is not participating in the 3-on-3 competition of the PBA now, was that actually a sign that Alaska was going to be withdrawing from the PBA?
No, not necessarily, Canito. I think our non-participation in 3-on-3 was that we just wanted to focus our efforts really on the core team. Listen, 3-on-3 is hugely popular, not just in the
Mhm.
Philippines, but globally. And maybe it's something that we should have done, but that was not a precursor to the decision. And who's to say that our decision to not participate in the PBA is solely because of Friesland Campina? I may have come to this conclusion myself as as an independent team, with us owning it. Um, it's challenging. It is very challenging.
And how do you see the PBA 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, I hope that they continue to be a 12-team league. I don't think, in my opinion, that they can be much bigger than that because the frequency by which teams can play, which means the marketing value will diminish. So 12 is a fairly optimum level. And I think the key for the success of the PBA moving forward is this level playing field that I've spoken about, so that you have a good 6 to 8 teams that are competitive in the playoffs, and any of them can win a PBA title, and it's not just a couple of teams. That will make the league more endearing to the fans going forward.
Mr.
Mm.
Uytengsu, tell us about the Rock and Roll Marathon. You mentioned this in a previous interview, and our sponsor, ASICS, is going to be involved in this Rock and Roll
Mhm.
Marathon. Can you tell us a little bit about it, and are you going to be involved?
So yes, we have brought Rock and Roll Marathon is one of the brands that Ironman owns, and it's not just your regular marathon where you just run 42K or 21K. The concept here is to make it fun but still competitive. We'll have bands stationed throughout the race course, and we're hoping to get over 10,000 people to join this in June. But it's really up our wheelhouse in terms of the triathlons and the Ironmans that we've been organizing for the last 12 years now. It'll be held in Manila, so the city of Manila has been very helpful, very supportive of this, and we hope this signals a return to normalcy back in the
Mm.
Philippines, and that mass participation events, starting with the Century Tuna Ironman next month, but then with the A6 Rock and Roll Marathon in June, that people can go back to their normal lifestyles, their normal, active, healthy lifestyles.
Well, before we turn you over to Diane for our last question, my final question is, how would you like the Alaska franchise to be remembered?
You know, um, I think history will dictate that. I think we want to be known as a professional, as a fair franchise, that the players really enjoyed playing for. You know, there have been teams that have been successful in the PBA, in the NBA, in the Euro leagues, and I think what's really important is that the teams will look back fondly on their time with Alaska and know that they were appreciated, that they were treasured, and that those memories will be something that they can pass down to their children and their grandchildren.
Wonderful, wonderful, Mr. Ratings. Thank you so much. And Diane, your
Yeah.
final question?
Well, I just wanted to ask. I know you've been out of the country for almost 2 years. Is it? I see all your posts. When will you be coming back to the Philippines
Yeah,
for the rock and roll? And tell us more also about the Ironman, the Century Tuna Ironman next month. That's like super good news.
it's great news. Well, first of all, with the races, we have about 800, almost 900 participants who will be attending that, and that's really the first Ironman event in Asia for all of Ironman. So we're very
Mm.
proud that this event that is kicking off in Asia since the pandemic is happening in the Philippines. So, as Filipinos, we should all be very, very proud of that. The same thing with Rock and Roll Marathon. It's the first Rock and Roll Marathon, but all of these events, people are now coming out from their homes because we have the safety protocols to make sure and mitigate from any risk of getting sick. I also think as the pandemic starts moving more to an endemic, and that the mutation of this virus now is more of a cold as opposed to something that is can put you in the hospital or is fatal. And then finally, in terms of my return, no, I hope to be coming home sooner than that. I don't have plans. I have some obligations here with family right now, but it's been far too long. I miss home, and I hope to be home sooner.
Wow, it's been so good
Thanks
talking to
very
you,
much.
and we look forward to seeing you back here in the Philippines, and hope and we'll be seeing you in the Rock and Roll Marathon, and hopefully in the triathlon as well next month if you're back. Thank you so
Super.
much for your time, Fred. It's been so awesome, and thank you for all you've done. Really, you've been so good. You've been so good for Philippine sports. So come back soon.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much, Mr. Uytengsu, for everything you've done for Philippine sports, for everything you've done with Philippine media. You've always been so cooperative, so accessible. But your sense of professionalism, your
Yeah.
sense of excellence, I think those are the things that Alaska will be leaving behind in the PBA. And I'm certainly hoping that the PBA learns from your example and grows because of that. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Mr.
Kanita. Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you. Say hello to the
Thank you again.
family, and
I will.
God bless. See you
Bye bye.
soon. All
Oh,
right.
wow. That that was a very emotional
Yeah,
interview,
I
because
was actually very, I felt like tearing a number of times, because you can just, it's really so rare to see someone who puts in his whole heart and soul and life into sports. And I'm such a big fan of the way he does things, like as you
well,
said,
that was
so
very
excellently, so professional, and treating their teams like families. And you can see in all the sports that he gets into, it's always successful: basketball, triathlon, now
Mhm.
A6, and just his personal discipline, uh, you know joining the masters swimming again, finishing that Ironman. Fred
Well, we asked you some
Uytengsu.
very tough questions today, and hats off to Mr. Fred Uytengsu for answering with candidness and with frankness and honesty. And he's certainly someone who everyone can emulate. I think he's a very
Yes.
inspiring person. So thank you, Mr. Uytengsu, and that wraps up our show, Diane.
Yep, before we go, we want to thank our partner who has made our episode possible. Whether you've been working out or taking part in different sports or just looking and feeling good, playitright.com has something for you. They have brands like A6, of course, Molten, Mikasa, Mueller, Donjoy, Butterfly, and many others. Playitright.com, offering premium products at reasonable prices. So check it out, playitright.com.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our episode today. Certainly a very enlightening conversation with Mr. Fred Uytengsu, and you can only get that from Play It Right TV. So, sports fans, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that bell button so that you can get notified every time we have new videos, new interviews, new scoops and exclusives for you. You'll only get it here from Play It Right. And this is Kinito Henson.
And I'm Diane Castillo. We'll see you next time on Play It Right TV.